Hello and welcome to Leadership Lanes. And today we'll be talking about partnerships in retail tech and its key to growth. We have a very special guest today, Tom. Tom is a seasoned retail analytics executive with over 20 years of experience working across diverse functions. As a retail owner, as an industry expert serving the retail tech industry, and as a channel development leader. Tom has experience building and managing many of the teams within the organizations that he's been a part of, including sales, data analytics, safety and loss prevention, and even customer experience. Tom's experience includes a strong history of leadership, helping to guide organizations through his growth cycles. His passion for solving problems retailers and consumers face today led to his interest in helping to build his consulting practice, where he connects technology companies and retailers to solve the most critical business issues. Tom holds a BS in Business Administration Accounting from California State University, Chico. He sits on Technology Innovate Advisory Council at the Loss Prevention Research Council at the University of Florida. Welcome to the episode, Tom.
Oh, thank you, Abhijit, and I appreciate the warm welcome.
Great. So let's dig right in, right? Starting with the basics. So why do you feel our partnerships so critical to success in the retail space, especially in tech?
Yeah, partnerships are critical regardless of the industry you're in, but especially in retail, there are so many components that need to be pulled together to offer a total solution to the retailer to address a particular pain point or a use case. Well, those individual components somebody has to be able to understand the components, put the components together, and marry it to an appropriate use case that actually benefits the retailer and helps them to operate more efficiently while maintaining a safe and secure environment for their employees and their customers. Secondarily, these partnerships actually provide a go-to-market motion for a lot of the tech companies. Startups, I live here in Silicon Valley. Startups don't have lots of people. So the more extensive your partnerships and the tighter they are, and the retailers have partners that they prefer working with, they actually become an extension of your sales force. And so it's important for a lot of different reasons, and it benefits both the technology company, the partner, and the retailer.
That was very insightful, actually, right? And just building up on the partnerships aspect, right? In your experience, how have partnerships evolved in retail, especially tech partnerships? And with the rise of digital transformation, do you see a pattern?
Yes, that's an excellent question. And when we first started bringing technology solutions to market, we were just point solutions. We were doing base perimeter in and out traffics, and maybe a little bit of some analytics around different segments of the store to understand how consumers were behaving and how they were pathing throughout their visits. But those individual point solutions left the retailer with these disparate systems that have to log into 4 or 5 systems to try to figure out what's going on and then try to figure out how to consolidate it. So most of the experience I have is in computer vision AI for retailers. And now with the advanced development with software, you can leverage the existing infrastructure inside of the retailer for the most part. So you don't have these proprietary systems that caused problems in the past. So I think it's really important to note that that platform that they're able to develop for a retailer allows them to assign onto one, maybe 2 platforms, and then technology companies like to integrate onto those platforms. So the integration points are fewer for the retailer, fewer for the partner, and makes it a little easier for the technology company to work the solution with their partners, like the semiconductor companies and the manufacturers and the installation partners and the system integrators.
Probably deviating a bit, you said something which intrigued me actually, and you talked about the importance of staying inside the retailer's infra or staying inside the retailer's ecosystem. How critical is it for retailers to have these solutions inside their ecosystem as opposed to going outside for, say, like a SaaS solution or something?
So I think, I'll mention this a little later in our conversation, but retailers are really good at understanding the retail market, consumers, their behaviors, and the trending. Technology companies are really good at understanding how to build technology, right? So I've seen internally built technology that is easier for the retailer to integrate because they built it themselves, so they built it with their integration in mind. But I've seen more progressive technology coming out of third parties because they're constantly innovating. And I think for larger enterprises that have really large emerging and innovation teams, I'm sure that it may be more feasible for them. But most retailers that I work with use third parties to they use third party vendors. And because they can most everybody, if you can't leverage the existing infrastructure, probably not going to have a solution that's viable unless it's so special and niche for the retailer. So having to be able to leverage that existing infrastructure with your own third party, with your as an ISV would be the third party, I think is pretty important to the retailer.
Got it, got it. Thanks a lot for that, actually, right? I'm pivoting a bit to some of the foundational elements, I would say. Starting with, in your opinion, what are the key ingredients of I would say, a successful partnership in retail tech?
Sure. Key ingredients. Key ingredients to a successful partnership is to understand what the need of the retailer is, right? You want to find a suitable hardware and software and integration partner that aligns with those needs and the geography of the retailer. And you need to quantify the real value of the solution and its operational, financial, staffing, and revenue implications of implementing that technology. Understanding the ROI of a solution is critical for both the seller who's got to prove out the value of their solution and for the retailer that has to go for budget and be able to deploy this at scale.
Uh, got it, right. I mean, when you talk about ROI, right, I guess it's great. And I believe one of the most complex parts is to actually calculate or come up with the formula, I would say, to calculate the ROI for any solution for that matter, because there are multiple components involved when you
Absolutely.
that.
And there's a total cost that has to be taken into consideration, not just the cost of the solution. So it's quite complex. And usually when we build the models for a particular pilot, we actually have to work with all the teams within because you have stakeholders in all the different departments within the retailer, and they're all impacted in a different way. And they allocate resources. Those resources cost money. There's just there are a lot of what would otherwise be considered hidden costs to an outsider that's not really taking into consideration the total cost of a system.
So moving on to the next question, right? And I'm probably delving much into the MBA aspects of things, but how do you ensure trust and credibility when building relationships with retail companies?
Sure. And I think this goes in all directions in the retailer, in your ISV, with your system integrator or any of your integration partners. You have to, they're all intended to be very long term. And so understanding the current and future needs of the retailers and the present value that you have and what you presently have to show them and what's on the horizon that they're maybe not thinking of. I think that you need to be able to offer that, build collaborative, thoughtful, long-term partnerships, and that all has this underlying element of trust. Because if you're not a trusted partner, I just don't, and that's built over time. But I think that's probably the key.
Do you feel starting small helps?
I think starting small to understand the impact, to be able to extrapolate what it might look in the entire network or a segment of the network that you might want to deploy in, I think is very helpful. It also helps to work out and tease out other potential issues that may not have been, that may surface during that, either pilot or proof of value. So I'm a proponent of taking several locations that typify the network and then one outlier or two outliers and having those as environments. A lot of enterprise retailers actually have lab stores and they're live stores. And they test out technology over a long period of time to see what the effect is, because a lot of times they'll come back and realize that they need yet another supplemental technology to be able to make yours useful, or they may not be able to fully take advantage of the technology that you put before them.
Staying on the partnership side, right? What are the different types of partnerships in retail tech that typically consultants and businesses should consider?
Yeah. Well, consultants and businesses should consider presenting retail technology that aligns with the value and the need of the retailer. They're all different, right? And that's why retailers have specific partners that they lean on, because they are trusted partners and they know that when they say we have an issue with XYZ, can you bring us a few solutions that we can evaluate? Some retailers want to decrease labor, some want to provide a better customer service. You have to listen, and listen some more. Successful partnerships begin with really understanding the retailer's business and what role it wants to provide for the consumer. Understanding this will help to determine the players who should be in any given opportunity to help the retailer.
And a follow-up to that, right? How can consultants act as bridges between the retailers and these ISVs or tech providers for that matter?
Well, I think sometimes we spend a little bit of time talking past each other because we have different backgrounds, right? Technology folks, and I'm not a highly technical person. I'm not a technical person. But being able to have a conversation that can be distilled down to somebody that it maybe not be as technical. If you have a technologist, they understand their technology really well, and their baseline might be technically a lot higher than others that they're trying to speak with. And so consultants and businesses, mostly consultants, need to be able to bridge that gap to be able to distill the message down to those. And, like I was saying before, retailers are excellent at understanding consumers, the consumer needs, and the trends. And a lot of enterprise level retailers have emerging tech and innovation teams, but those that are using it on a daily basis may not be as technically trained as their counterparts. So being able to distill that message, distill the concept and the technology down to them so that it becomes usable to them, the less technical, maybe some of the operations folks, I think it's really important because they don't deal with complex technology all day long. They're literally running an operation. So their operations all run on outcomes, and we need to realize that when we're crafting our messages.
I'm moving to some of the challenging aspects of this.
Mhm.
And starting with, in your opinion, what do you feel are the biggest challenges businesses face when forming these retail partnerships? And how can they overcome, especially in this highly concentrated market, I would say?
Yeah, yeah. I think the hardest thing to prove out is the ROI and benefit to a specific retailer for a specific solution to address a specific use case, because there's too much fluidity in all of it. And so technology go-to-market folks are really good at estimating what an ROI could yield, but you really don't know what it is until you really get into the nuts and bolts of the operation and what the technology is providing. So I think proving a real ROI is one of the biggest challenges. And I think there's a debate on whether or not you try to show what your ROI could be up front when you first meet them, which I don't do that, because I mean, obviously there's a proof of value. We're not bringing a technology to market that hasn't been proven, but that doesn't mean it's going to be useful for this particular retailer. So I try to wait till I really understand the need of the retailer before we start building the model. And retailers they have challenges that are very unique. Accurately modeling an environment that typifies a store network and provides solid value is a challenge. If you get past that hurdle, one of the biggest challenges is going to be to deploy a solution at scale. That's why selecting the ideal partners that align with your network and their reach and your geography and all that up front is essential for success.
That's a good take actually, right? And probably I'm kind of deviating again a bit. Do you see, and you talk about retailers having unique problem sets, right? And now you combine the fast-paced growth AI has given us. Do you see a differentiation between a one-size-fits-all solution as opposed to a much more curated or a bespoke solution for that matter?
It's like an excellent point. And because I think everybody grapples with that. I
Hmm.
think when you're in, I'll give an example, convenience with fuel, right? If you're in a segment of the market that has a lot of similarity to it, and a lot of the analytics, the AI can be around food safety. And you'll find food safety in a lot of convenience and fuel and also in some hot items in grocery. So I think to the extent you can have an analytic that can be used by a lot of people, but by and large, even the most high level blanketed one size fits all ends up becoming bespoke when you get involved in pilot because the needs are just so different. So I think you want to get 90% of the way there and understand, is food waste, food safety an issue? Is, driving efficiency at checkout? Is theft at self checkout? Is, fuel theft? If what are these things are important, and you need to have this dialogue ongoing in specialty retail. How does a consumer interact with this particular handbag, and how do their associates interact with them? Where do they first meet them? How long is the interaction? What is the net effect of that interaction? So you can build one specialty retail, some for groceries, some for convenience with fuel, and big box. But my experience has been that they often become bespoke because when they really see what you can do, they start opening up to additional features that they'd like to see.
That's quite an interesting take, actually, right? To be honest.
Mhm.
Uh, I'll move on to some of the other challenges, right? So, how do you handle situations where there is a mismatch in expectations between partners, for example?
This happens often, and sometimes because the players have changed either at one of the partners or at the retailer. And so, if there's a mismatch, it's typically because they weren't either set at the onset of the relationship, or the partners or stakeholders changed during the evaluation process. So transparency and honesty are the only way to handle this. I've spent a lot of time bringing new stakeholders up to speed on an existing program and resetting expectations, what their expectation is, and realigning it. And if we have to go back to the beginning and get everybody else on the same page, then I do that, because you don't want to get three-quarters of the way through and then find that you had either a change in players, or somebody had an agenda, so there has to be somebody, and this is another role the consultant plays, which is you're playing traffic cop, right? You're making sure, okay, this is what we said we wanted to achieve, and everybody, I need to understand from each department what they're looking to get out of it. And as things change, because it may look like it's a fit initially, but then it's not. So you need to be very transparent and immediately let them know that this is looking like it may not be as well. And so we need to adjust our expectations. I think it's difficult because people don't like to deliver bad news, but I don't look at it that way. I look at it as these folks have to give updates to their executive staff as well. And so the timeliness of me, of anybody, any consultant, providing updates, and a lot of times they're good updates that, it looks like we'll have a greater operational efficiency on this analytic than we realized. So, and there's a lot of money and time that gets put into these things. So a change could put a heavy burden on a big change could put a heavy burden on one of the partners, making it difficult for them to have a successful outcome. So I'd just say having a consistent cadence during the progress, and vocalizing and sharing any changes along the way, it's just a must. I've made the mistake of not doing that in the past. It's not a good idea.
Which was sort of my next or a follow-up question, right? As a consultant, do you see continuity or business continuity a big challenge in such situations?
Um, yeah, I do see continuity. Again, the retailers, the partners, because the partners oftentimes, even when they're out selling your solution, they don't necessarily they have a lot of solutions they're selling. So they may need you to assist them in a technical presentation or in a business presentation to understand the value of the technology. So I do see my point being that the retailers and the partners tend to go back to the same people they always trusted. So they force the continuity in there. But there are changes. So it happens all the time, and you just have to be able to deal with those transitions. I think the hardest part is there's always a point person that is the go-between between the partner and the retailer and the technology and holding all the pieces together. When that person goes away, then you end up with disparate information and sets of information. So, you know, I try not to allow that. I know for me, I wouldn't leave a program midstream unless I was asked to leave a program midstream, and I haven't been. So
Got it, got it. That was great, actually, right? And moving on to my last segment, right? And we talk about the exciting part or the boring part of networking. So, what are the best ways consultants, businesses, ISVs, uh, can identify potential partners? I mean, yeah, I mean, I have my opinions about industry events or through professional communities, especially industry events. But what is your take on the best ways to build that relationship or at least start that relationship?
well, I have my opinions as well, and I'm sure they don't match with a lot of people. I do believe in identifying new potential. It's picking the right industry events or partnerships or organizations is critical. But I'll take they have some very large trade shows that are very heavily attended, that are very difficult to network. The networking is critical, but networking smartly efficiently can be very difficult at those large events. So I tend to like to, the reason I sit on the loss prevention research, work with the Loss Prevention Research Council, is I get to see the trends that are taking place in retail. So I can keep reviewing new technology to be able to provide to the partners and to the retailers. I do the same with the Loss Prevention Foundation. And these are smaller groups, and you'll have like an event that'll have maybe 200 or 300 people, but they're all very specific and very niche. And as a technology provider, I think if I support, I'm in safety and security, then you want to make sure that you align with those very specific ones. And you can tell which ones, they'll tell you which retailers are members. So you can determine whether or not, it's the right one. Some of the larger organizations we join because we know we need to join and be part of that community. But I like to niche out. I really like to go to and I probably go to 10 or so trade shows and industry events a year at least. But a lot of them are check-ins with individual groups as well. And I find those to be I think they're necessary for a consultant to be able to see what the changing landscape looks like and to be able to provide, the ecosystem continues to change, right? And you need to keep a full ecosystem so that when a new use case comes up, you can add those components, you can put the components together. So I think it's important.
Got it, got it. So what you're essentially saying is more targeted marketing or targeted networking
Yeah.
as opposed to just going there and shooting in the dark kind of thing. So,
It's too hard. I mean, you go to a trade show with 30,000 people and I find that a lot of the meetings that take place are never at the trade show because it's too busy. So you're meeting at either a coffee or a lunch or maybe grabbing a dinner or just meeting at a hotel. I've seen people just get hotel suites and they've got people coming in and out because it's just too crowded.
that's true. I totally agree. And my last question was focused around that how does personal branding, right, play a role in establishing trust or these partnerships, right? It sort of relates to the networking aspect as well, but more from a personal branding play.
That's interesting. I mean, I have a lot of industry friends that are very big on branding, and I think they do a lot of speaking engagements at large events, and I think that's really important. I'm not sure as a consultant I have a personal brand, but I'm considered knowledgeable, dependable, and credible, and so people do business with people they like and trust. So I think establishing the trust becomes your brand. And the best marketing you can have is when your partners are referring you. And so I've always, I moderate panels, but I'm not typically a panelist. So I don't, moderators tend not to have a brand. So, I'm trying to just take in as much information as I can so that I can be the most helpful and useful to the partners when somebody comes and provides an opportunity because there's an issue.
Again, right, I believe that's also an opinionated response, I would say, because I've heard both sides of the spectrum. I'm still not decided what side to lead on, but I've heard both sides of the spectrum. So yeah.
Well, as the CEO of the company, you kind of are the brand. So it is, and I think that works itself out over time anyway because it's you developing technology and bringing it to market. So I think it's great.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. And last slide, moving on to the closing thoughts, right? If you could leave our listeners with one key takeaway about retail partnerships, what would it be?
That's a tough one. One takeaway. Well, always be honest. And, you've always got to be honest and transparent. Provide only solutions with strong value, dependable, credible technical partners to work with. Retailers get sold to all day long. And if you can walk in their shoes for a moment and don't waste their time. If what you have to present isn't a great fit today, that doesn't mean it won't be a great fit as you continue to iterate and they iterate as well. Don't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. It won't provide a desired outcome, and we'll have partnership retailers questioning your integrity. And if you don't have integrity or trust, I mean, you're not really a partner at that point. So I think you just have to be dead honest and present what you've got at the right time when you've been able to qualify that there's a need and don't waste their time. They're very, very busy people.
Got it. I mean, I totally agree with you on that, actually, right? It was a great experience talking to you, Tom, today. Thanks a
Same
lot.
here, Abhijit. I thank you for inviting me and this is a great talk and it's been nice getting to know you along the way as well. You've got a very interesting background and you've got a new company and I think it's going to do really well. I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.